All right, today my guest is Donato Helbling. This is one of the most interesting people I have ever met. He's weird, he's crazy, he's eclectic, he was an engineer, an electrical engineer, entrepreneur, a wellness guy, coaches entrepreneurs on wellness and some interesting things, very different from what's out there in the world. I met him because he's a Wim Hof guy. That's how he started doing that years ago. And he owns Miami Ice Club, which is a really cool place with multiple locations in South Florida. Even though he doesn't live here, he has people running it. And I learned how to hold my breath, how to let go, how to get in cold water, things I never did before. Welcome, Donato. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much, brother. How you doing?
I'm great.
We made it happen.
Yeah, you're here all the way from North Carolina down to South Florida, and we got to see each other twice in the last 2 days because you put on an awesome event for a bunch of entrepreneurs. I can only imagine to be around you for a multi-day retreat would be really cool because I've hired you for our retreats for the Brotherhood. I've spent a day with you when you did the kind of like introduction to breathing. My wife and I went to this class that you had at the old location near Little Haiti around there. And that was cool because it was a longer day. Yeah. It wasn't just a session. All right, well, I want to hear more about you. I've heard some of these things, but I know I'm going to learn a lot more about you. Tell me about little Donato. When you were a little kid, where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Argentina. I was born in La Plata, which is the capital of Buenos Aires. And yeah, I grew up in the middle of the city. I grew up in Buenos Aires capital, like in the middle of it. I was an only child. I am still an only child, and I went to a really cool school that my parents put me in, which was kind of weird at the time, which was Spanish in the morning, regular school, and then English every afternoon.
That worked out. That helped you out.
It worked out pretty good, man. So yeah, I was actually we were actually all our classmates were English teachers by grade 8, like certified English teachers. Wow, really weird. So our grammar was pretty on point there. Yeah, very strange.
Did your parents know one day you'd end up in the U.S.?
My dad kind of had this master plan in the back of his head that he was gonna kind of send me out at some point. So that was a really interesting upbringing for me to be able to always kind of have this in Argentina, we don't look up to the U.S. the way that other countries look at. It's kind of like the U.S. is not a necessarily good thing over there. It's more of a very consumer, very superficial, very commercial.
Because Argentina, for those who don't know, is more of a European country.
I mean,
right? Doesn't it have some?
It's got a lot of European influence. I think it's a lot more. It's a lot more evident when you go to Buenos Aires. Like Buenos Aires doesn't look anything like Venezuela, like Caracas, which is where the second part of my kind of like childhood was. But yeah, I grew up doing that, and I was a fat kid.
Really?
Which is always something that I tell people, because I feel that was something that that helped me develop into the person that I am today in a very weird way, right? I was a fat kid, and in Buenos Aires, really you only play football, soccer, right? So you only play that one sport.
So you were the goalie?
Yes. So I'm a pretty good goalie, but I can't run with the ball still.
The fat kid always ends up as a catcher in baseball or the goalie in soccer.
Weird, right? Yeah. It's like, well, this kid can't move, I guess. So, I was pretty hooked on sugar as a kid, which is very common in Argentina. We eat a lot of pastries, a lot of sugar, a lot of dairy, a lot of that. So,
but you also eat some of the best beef in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, think about it. The best beef in the world also produces the best dairy, right? Yeah. So great ice cream, great dairy. Yeah. A lot of sugar, a lot of that type of stuff. So I was a really chubby kid, but I always had really deep connections with my friends. And I always valued interpersonal relationships, with people, and I always was very kind of nerdy into understanding how things worked. As my dad's an engineer, my mom's an architect, so there was always technicalities going on in my house. My dad bought me my first computer when I was 5, So I kind of learned how to use a computer before I learned how to write.
When were you born? What year?
I was born in 1982. So I guess 1987, I got my first computer. And that was I was like the only kid with a computer.
Is that a Commodore?
It was actually a PC. Oh. It was actually a PC. I had some friends that had Commodores, but I got a PC because my dad had PCs at work. Oh. So he's like, well, I'm going to get you one of the ones there.
Nice.
So he would bring me to work in a steel factory sometimes, right? Because my dad worked all the fucking time. Mm-hmm. So he would bring me to work sometimes, and I would just sit on his desk and kind of play around with a computer.
Wow, lucky to be able to do that.
Man, it was crazy. I mean, looking back, it was a great opportunity for me, and that's what turned me into. This is kind of how my future as a computer and electrical engineer kind of started. Mm-hmm. When I was a fat kid, 5 years old, working with computers, and they're like, "Well, this guy's gonna be a dork. Let's make it happen." Right? So Argentina was great. When I graduated elementary school, then you go to high school, and in high school. So back in the day, you had elementary school to 7th grade, and then high school right after that, right? And in Argentina, we have technical high school, right? You can go to regular high school, or you can go to technical.
Where you're choosing a path for your career.
You're already choosing a path to. Most engineers start in technical high school, so you get 5 years of high school where you're already learning how to work with all kinds of shop classes, right? And the high school that I went to was really cool because they had computers and mechanics, like car. So some of these high schools kind of specialize on tracks, right? Yeah. So a lot of the kids that would graduate that high school would be mechanics by the time you finish high school.
Nice.
Or like computer technicians, right? But after my second year in that high school, we moved to Venezuela. So the economy in Argentina was starting to get really, really, really bad.
And did your parents get a job?
My dad was actually, my dad kind of got let go of his engineering work, and he was kind of, entrepreneuring a little bit with his friends for a few years. And then he got a really good offer to move to Venezuela. In Venezuela, there was a kind of like a takeover of a state-owned metal factory by this company that was predominantly Argentinian engineers. So they moved 90-something Argentinian families to this city called Puerto Ordaz in Venezuela, which is a very industrial city, really cool city in Venezuela, kind of like a Detroit type of thing, very American design city, very different than Caracas, right? So I did high school there. And man, those were the best years of my life. And I started playing rugby there because finally I had a sport that wasn't soccer that I could play.
Were you still chubby in high school?
I was already not chubby.
Oh,
so
what changed? Puberty?
Puberty. Yeah, puberty. So like right the last year of my year in Argentina, I kind of stretched out. And it's funny because by the time I was 14, I was this height and this weight. Oh. Which was a problem for rugby because being this height and this weight, 5'7", 150 at the top of my, bad. But I got used to the contact. I got used to the sport. I got used to running, to doing that. And man, I got very focused on the ladies in Venezuela. Mm-hmm.
That's a good place to be focused on ladies.
God,
those are some of the most beautiful women in the world. They've won so many Miss Universe.
They make them there, man. I don't know what's the story, but some good genes over there. And it was funny because I remember being in Venezuela and being weirded out by the fact that every time somebody would ask a little girl, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" the answer is Miss Venezuela.
Yeah, beauty queen.
Yeah, but no, not beauty queen. Miss Venezuela.
Oh, Miss Venezuela.
Yeah, they don't mess around. Wow. they shoot for the top.
Yeah.
But it was cool because also in our city, it was really interesting because a lot of people just become engineers, and that because that's kind of all there is. There's some commerce, and then there's engineering, right? So, it's really funny because I got to date one of the Miss Venezuela candidates, and she was an industrial engineer.
Wow.
Yeah, really badass.
Brains and beauty.
Oh my God, she was awesome. So
and then that you set a high bar there for yourself.
Yeah. So it was a good and I was there like at the peak of the Venezuelan amazing years.
These are now what years?
This is
before 2000.
Yeah, before 2000, like 96, 97, 98.
Oh, yeah.
It was great. So I was there when Chavez went into power and all that, and it was really a beautiful. I mean, of course, Venezuela was always the shit show that it was. It was kind of, they had it a little bit more under control, but it was great.
Something that I've heard about Venezuela, told to me by Venezuelans, but confirmed by an American who married a Venezuelan and went and lived down there and opened businesses, is that in Venezuela, things were so prosperous in those years that you would put $1 in the ground and you'd have a Dollar Tree. Like, it was just so easy to make money. This friend went and opened furniture stores and crushed it and made a ton of money. Yeah. Obviously, not anymore. That's all gone.
Trust me, people are still making plenty of money over there. What was weird for me, and I do credit a lot of my evolution as a human to that move, because Venezuela and Argentina are very, very different. So I went from the capital of Argentina to this like second tier city in Venezuela, right? So complete different cultures, even though it's the same language, very different. You know, I was like a skater, long-haired Argentinian kid from the capital in this city. I was weird as hell over there. And what was interesting, the first thing that was weird for me is that in Argentina, the school year is from March to December, right? Because of the weather.
Your summer was the other time of the year.
Right, so March to December, right? So you start and you finish. Then when I moved over there, we were scheduled to move in May or something like that. So I finished school in December and in Argentina, and my dad said, well, do you want to start school or do you want to just kind of do something else till May? And I was like, no, I want to get a job. So I was 13, not going to school in Argentina, and I was working, interestingly, at a lighting house in downtown Buenos Aires, like in Santa Fe and Callao, like the middle of Buenos Aires. I was riding public transportation. I was the delivery guy for lighting fixtures to construction sites. Wow. 13 years old, just going around and just kind of hustling, you know what I mean? So I got to have a salary. I got to make my money. I get to buy my cool clothes, and I get to buy my cool skateboard and become really independent, right? And my dad kind of moved to Venezuela first, and I stayed there with my mom a little bit. So it was very independent the last period. And then when I moved to Venezuela, the school year didn't start till like 6 months after.
Oh, wow. You had an extended break.
I had a sabbatical when I was 13, 14, which was cool because I got to, once I moved there, make a lot of friends and start meeting a lot of other kids. And all the Argentinian kids were kind of hanging out with each other. And I was like, well, fuck this. I'm not going to move to... It was funny because when I moved, I didn't know where Venezuela was. I thought I was moving to like Central America or something, you know? And I was like, I didn't fucking know where it was. So I moved, and so I was always socializing, right? Because I didn't have to go to school, right? But because I went to technical high school in Argentina, I was already ahead of the class. So I never missed. So that extra year, I never missed school. Yeah. So it's not like I got held back or anything. So when I started school, I already had friends in every other school, right? And all the Argentinian kids were still hanging out with each other. I had all kinds of Venezuelan friends. It was awesome. So all the Argentinian kids I would be the one, because we would get together on Sundays for asado and like stuff like that. So I had kind of like always the Argentinian connection. But they'd be like, so where are the cool parties with the Venezuelan girls, right? Yeah. So I'd be like, okay. So we would hang out, and it was really cool. But I always had the Argentinian connection because I would always play rugby, right? And that's kind of was all the Argentinian guys playing rugby. And then every time we would do asado with my parents' friends that were all co-workers, right? So we always had that connection. But I kind of had this dual personality. And that's kind of, when I was a teenager, it's kind of when I developed this comfort with having dual personalities, right? Which later on in my evolution as a person, I realized that there's not such a thing as a dual personality. You're one person, but you can be very flexible and adaptable, and you can
mold.
You can adapt to the situation, right? So adaptable, I guess, is the way to go. So when I was with the RGs, I would be speaking full on Argentinian. Then when I was with the Venezuelans, I would kind of like blend in a little bit more. And it was really fun, healthy, man, clean upbringing. Holy crap!
And how long were you there in Argentina? I'm sorry, in Venezuela.
I was there till I graduated high school. And I moved to the U.S. In 2000.
Okay.
So I turned 18 in the U.S. Actually, I moved out of my house when I was 17.
So your parents stayed back.
They stayed in Venezuela.
And you came where in the U.S.?
Philadelphia. Philadelphia was really
Why?
funny.
Why there?
I went to school there. I went to Drexel University to study engineering. Really weird. I don't even know how the hell I picked that school, honestly. Like, no idea. So I ended up there. And my parents flew me there, and they dropped me off in West Philadelphia, where Will Smith is from.
The hood.
Yeah. Oh shit, it was in there, because they have this program where you could stay at a host, like a cultural exchange house type of thing, and it was this Christian pastor that had me and this. So they had this Korean exchange student and I and his family in a house in West Philly. I lasted there 3 weeks because it was in the middle of the hood and I didn't like it. And also because they were very, very Christian. And
they're cramping your style.
I mean, I had too many questions that they weren't very comfortable answering.
Yeah.
And, they fucked up. They brought an engineer to a religious house. You're going to ask some.
Questions.
You're going to have some. And I wasn't raised religious. In Argentina, everyone's Catholic. Not everyone, but a lot of people are Catholic, Like my cousin, I was having a conversation with my cousin last week because I invited him to my wedding, and he's like, "Well, I have my kid's first communion is that same weekend," and I was like, "We're still doing that to our children? What the fuck?" It's like, I know you don't go to church. I know nobody in my family.
The customs. That's a lot of Catholicism.
It's part of the culture there, and also because the thing is that a lot of the schools are Catholic schools, so kind of to send your kid to the good school, you kind of got to pretend that you're Catholic. You know what I mean? So you got to kind of be like, yeah, sure, we'll put my kid in. And all the kids are like, what the fuck are we doing? So it's kind of like weird. But, I mean, part of the culture still. So, moved to Philadelphia. And in Philly, I started doing, I started studying electrical and computer engineering, which was really cool. I really did not enjoy studying engineering.
But you stuck with it. You finished it?
I finished it, but I hated it. Studying engineering is, I usually tell people that if your kid wants to be an engineer, let me talk to them before they go to school, because I'll prepare them. I let them know how fucking bad engineering school is. You're going to learn so much math, and I'm terrible at math. Terrible. I don't know the times tables.
Really?
I never learned.
But you could probably do calculus.
I think I could, because I graduated with honors, but I don't know. I mean, if you give me an equation right now, I have no fucking clue what to do. I got very good at doing homework and testing, and immediately forgetting everything, because I was too busy in my head with electives. So Drexel has this thing that's really cool. It has two things that I really liked about it. Number one was the co-op program. So you study 6 months, and then you work 6 months. So technically, you're not studying a lot, which was great because I hated studying, but I loved working as an engineer. So I worked at a nuclear power plant, I worked at a steel factory, and then I worked at an industrial automation equipment manufacturer.
All during undergrad?
All during undergrad, doing full-on engineering work, because they interview you, they give you a position, and if you're good, and just what the coolest thing is that you're in college and you're getting an engineering salary.
Oh boy.
Fuck yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So my passion, which was building cars, so I was building cars. I was in college when Fast and the Furious came out. So I was big into that whole thing, tuning cars and doing all that shit. So that was fun. But the thing that happened in while I was in college was the other thing that I thought was really cool was that Drexel has electives. I don't know if that's common with other colleges or not, but you have a big chunk of your credit load is electives. All of my engineering friends were taking more engineering electives so that they could graduate with a dual bachelor's. So you could be an electrical and computer engineer, and you can also be a mechanical engineer. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about how many of these shitty degrees I get.
You went the eclectic route.
Oh, I went nuts. I studied wealth and power, which I was the only non-African American in that class. I took the whole track of that. It was awesome. I studied media and society. I studied the history and social impact of the automobile. I studied sociology, psychology, anthropology. I studied wine and spirits, which was the only class that I was hoping I could fail so I could take it again. It was really cool. And I learned weird things too. Like when I moved to the US, I learned that you couldn't drink until you were 18. Until you were 21.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Because in Latin America?
Yeah, because you fucking drink as long as you can order a drink.
If you can pronounce it, you can order it.
Yeah. You can go to the liquor store when you're 13 and my dad used to send me to buy cigarettes when I was 5, and I still remember the cigarettes that my dad used to smoke.
That's funny.
So I couldn't drink until I was 21. So I started brewing beer in my not in my dorm because I didn't stay in my apartment when I was 18. So I was making beer, good beer too. It was fun. So
you still do that?
Not anymore. But I'm thinking now that I'm in North Carolina. Well, in North Carolina, it's kind of like there's a brewery in every corner over there. So it's kind of like you're going to brew your own beer. It's kind of like
there's plenty.
There's plenty. But I'm always kind of making something. I'm brew kombucha or stuff like that.
And what got you on this path of being so interested in so many different things? Was it being a chubby kid and that forced you to do something? Because when you got to college, you knew the value of learning about all these different things. Yeah. What did it?
Well, I think I also dedicated a lot of time when I went into college because I tried out for the rugby team, for the Drexel University rugby team, right? And I've never met such big dudes because these are guys who didn't make it into a football team.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, man. I played 3 games and I was so hurt. But one of the guys was like, hey, we're getting together to practice some Kung Fu after if you want to come. And I was like, fuck, I always wanted to learn martial arts. Because I always liked the philosophy of martial arts. I always like Bruce Lee and stuff like that. So I got into martial arts. And
that's how you started Kung Fu?
I started with Wing Chun Kung Fu. Then
that's not what Bruce Lee did, was it?
Yeah, that's what Bruce Lee learned, and then he developed Jeet Kune Do. But it was but here's the thing: Bruce Lee started with Wing Chun, and then when he came to the U.S., well, he was always here in the U.S. People think that he came to the U.S., but
he's from Hong Kong.
Yeah, so he did. But Bruce Lee did. He was the cha-cha-cha champion of Hong Kong.
Wow.
Yeah, he was the great dancer. Wow. He also studied fencing. He also started boxing. So he realized also that there was this value in knowing more than one thing, right? And what always struck me from Bruce Lee that was really cool is that he knew a lot of things, but it's not like he was kind of like he knew a little bit of a lot of things. He was really good at a lot of things. Wow. And I feel like our society in especially in South America, so you study engineering and
you have to specialize,
and you're stuck, And I was like, no. When I was a kid, I studied a lot of theater, right? Growing up, fuck Kate, I'm not doing any of that, so I'm doing the theater thing. It was really cool because it was funny. A lot of the girls were also in theater.
Yeah.
Right? So, funny. But so I always that's another thing that I think helped me a lot is that I had a lot of friends that were girls growing up because I was not doing so many sports. Yeah. So I was hanging out with the girls a lot. So that I think that influenced a lot my coaching and my I think my taste for listening to people speak, and I think it helped me also listen to people go in circles, right, and be like, all right, that's where this is the part of the circle that's that created the circle, right? So I always value this learning a lot of things. And when I was in college, I started with Kung Fu, then I moved into Karate, then I moved into Taekwondo, and then I found Capoeira. Fuck man, Capoeira is still, I think Capoeira is still my favorite martial art.
It's kind of like a dance a little bit.
It is. The thing about martial arts, at least the way that I look at it, and everyone can look at martial arts the way they want. So, so if other martial artists are listening to this, I know there's probably a lot of jiu-jitsu guys that listen to this. I heard a Kung Fu teacher once say, jiu-jitsu is not a martial art. And I was like, okay, well, why not? He said, because it doesn't have kata, right? It doesn't have forms.
Right. And I guess you could roll around in shrimp and throw an invisible triangle. You could do a little of that.
Well, in Budokon, and the martial art that I ended up doing a lot, we used to do that. We used to have jiu-jitsu moves in our katas. We can talk about that in a little bit if you want. But to me, martial arts continues to this day to be the application of military technology for the purpose of personal development, right? So, like, I don't know, I can take a pen and I can take a pencil and a piece of paper and I can write notes, or I can paint an amazing photo. So you take two pieces of technology, pencil and paper, and you use it for personal expression or for personal development, right? Because sometimes when you're an artist, you just sketch this thing over and over, and in the process of producing a beautiful art piece, you discover something new about yourself, right? I feel like martial arts are the same thing. You take this technology, which was designed to kill people, or to hurt people, or to control people, or to prevent people from killing you, whatever you want to call it. This damage in technology, and you use it to develop yourself as a person. Now, I always like the artistic side of martial arts a lot, and the philosophical side of martial arts a lot. But I did, so capoeira, why I think it's, when I look back at all the martial arts that I did, I always enjoyed capoeira because it's very artistic. Yeah. It's very artistic. Now, I don't know if you've ever been kicked in the head by a capoeira guy.
No.
Well, I don't recommend it, because I would say a taekwondo guy kicked to the head, that hurts a lot. Capoeira kick to the head, it hurts the same, but it looks way cooler. And I remember that there was like one of the early UFC fights. A capoeira guy took a dude out with a double. He threw a roundhouse, and then he'd follow it with immediately another one. And the guy did not see the second one coming.
That second one.
No. So it was fun. Completely. I mean, is it as a martial art? Is it effective? I don't know, man. I always think that martial arts effectiveness is a lot more situational.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because jiu-jitsu is fucking great, except
one-on-one.
Yeah,
when it goes to the ground.
Yeah, how many street fights are one-on-one?
Yeah, that's the problem.
It's like, I'm never gonna fight you unless I have more weapons than you or more friends than you.
Yeah.
Right? So if you take me down, I'm probably gonna stab you or shoot you. I'm not gonna fucking try to triangle you.
Right.
Unless you're my drunk friend, of course, then I'll triangle you, right?
Yeah, put you to sleep.
I'm just gonna wait for my friends kick you in the head, right? So that's cool. But anyways, I mean, I think martial arts had that. So capoeira was really cool, and in capoeira, that's when I got introduced to jiu-jitsu, because some of the Brazilian guys were like, actually, it was one of the Brazilian girls that's like, you should come to this other class with me, and I'm like, sure, let's go. And we went, I walk into this room with all this guy with pajamas, the same story as everybody, And I'm like, cool, I know some stuff. And they fucked me up, right? Yeah. And I was like,
because they took out the striking that you knew from Kung Fu.
From all the other stuff,
and now you went straight to grappling.
Yeah, especially from Kung Fu. As soon as you put your hand out, now you got a guy climbing up your arm and breaking it. You're like, whoa. And I loved it, man. So I used to drive 45 minutes to go to South Philly to train at BJJ United. My teacher, his name was Jared. He was fucking great, man, because he was a judo black belt before he became a jiu-jitsu black belt. So he run his school like a judo dojo. So you had to bow, it was Japanese style. It was Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but it was Japanese style protocol. So that was my introduction to formal Japanese martial arts.
And with the training, I've been to a judo school. I was going once a week for a while just to work on takedowns. And something that I saw that was different was the drilling was not just drilling. It was like, all right, you throw him, and it was back and forth a lot and fast, a lot of reps, almost like wrestlers, how they do all those reps.
It's very much like wrestling, right? I mean, judo, it's really kind of Japanese wrestling when you think about it, right? But it's the throws, right? And as soon as you throw the guy to the ground, start over.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, if he lands flat on his back, it's over, right? Like a match.
Yeah, you pull on, right? So you if it's an undeniable throw or takedown, takedowns usually in judo result in half points or half point, and then a throw where you fly over. I mean, that's
it's over.
And you land flat on your back. Then it's
so. In that academy, you did judo and jiu-jitsu.
We kind of warmed up with judo, and then
warm up.
Yeah, great warm up. Nice when because in Philly, I remember driving in the snow, getting there, getting thrown for 20 minutes, then grappling for 2 hours. I remember no heat in the studio, and we all had steam coming out of our heads and our gis, right? And then I would walk in the snow, get back in my car, in my lowered, tuned Japanese car, which was a death trap in the snow. And I remember I would get home and hang my gi in the fire escape outside of the window, kind of like in New York, where you have those fire steps. And I would hang it, and then the next day I would wake up and my gi would be frozen.
Oh man, to put that back on.
And I was like, oh, fuck, I forgot it outside because I wanted it to dry out. Rookie South American kid in Philly. So I learned Jiu-Jitsu and I got into it big. That was my main martial art. I started in, I think, 2002, and I graduated in 2005. Competed a lot. At that time, I remember it was there were 2 or 3 tournaments that you would go to, and we would go and compete. And I never was a competitive kid. But that was my first kind of, even though I played rugby and all that, I was never, I liked the sport, but I didn't like the competition part. Like I kind of played for fun.
But how about with jiu-jitsu? Nobody forces you. It's not a team. You showed up because you started in those competitions?
Yeah, no, the school would go. And it was kind of like, the school is going to competition. And you're like, okay. And kind of like if you don't compete, you don't move up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this, of course you don't have to go. But every time somebody gets a belt, they just happen to win a competition. So it's kind of like this,
unwritten.
Yeah, you don't have to compete, but
but I've seen that in jiu-jitsu where some guys are stuck at a belt for a while, and I guess the professor talks to them or something because then they go do a competition, they do well, and then they get the next belt.
Yeah, I think competition in jiu-jitsu, you kind of got to. It's part of the culture. You know what I mean? It's jiu-jitsu is one of those martial arts where competition is very available and it's very safe, right? Like if you're practicing, and also like the traditional Japanese martial arts also have competition. If you do karate, you're going to compete. If you do taekwondo, Korean, then you're also competing. Yeah. These are Olympic sports, right? So you got it.
Also, I think it's good because you get comfortable with the guys in your academy and you start knowing your pecking order. You might even get a little cocky.
Yeah, you get a little cocky and then you show up in a competition.
Yeah, and then you realize
and you're like, fuck.
There's more stuff out there.
And also every school has their and now because there's so much competition, schools don't do this anymore. But back in the day, every school kind of had their own game.
Yeah,
right.
Course.
So our school was hard to take down, and we would fucking throw you.
Yeah.
Why? Because we had a judo. Because our teacher was a jiu-jitsu. Was a judo guy, right? Yeah. But then in Philly, we had a lot of wrestling guys, right? Because Philadelphia and New Jersey, a lot of wrestling, right? So there were some other academies that you're just kind of like, all right, cool. You slap a little fist bump, boom, and you got a guy on you, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
So, and nobody in our school would do that. But then my teacher was smart, so he started recruiting a lot of wrestlers. Yeah. So we had another professor that was a wrestler. So now so now my teacher, Jared, was very competitive. Very, very competitive. So it would take one loss for him to adapt. So he's like, okay, you lost to a wrestler, you're training until your next tournament. This is your training buddy. Yeah. He's a wrestler. He's state, right? So he's gonna drill the shit out of you. So it was. He took competition really seriously.
How far did you get in jiu-jitsu? I know you moved on to something else.
Yeah, so I got to blue over there. And then I just stayed blue belt for years, man. I stayed blue belt for years because when I moved to Miami, I got tired of jiu-jitsu. I was also hurt because I got an injury in my shoulder from like a really crazy Americana in a tournament. I lost the tournament because I tapped out. Thank God I tapped out.
Should you have tapped earlier? Was it too quick?
It was you know, it was a scrappy one. You know what I mean? I don't remember tapping late. I remember tapping when it hurt.
Yeah.
You know? And here's the other thing about jiu-jitsu is like everyone's going to try to convince you that you can tap and then you go to a competition, you get the bug in you, you got that adrenaline rush, you got this guy that you know you can beat him, you got your teacher fucking telling you to pass, you got this thing going on, and all of a sudden you're not paying attention to this limb that you left behind, and this guy's figured it out. So it's there's no better training, I think. You know.
Did you go on beyond the blue belt?
I did. Once I moved to Miami, I started doing yoga. So I moved into the yoga world, which was probably the best idea I've ever had.
So you always go to places where there's girls, theater,
it's
yoga. You moved to Venezuela to see all the Miss Venezuelas.
Yeah. So I always got along really well with both genders, right? I was always able to build camaraderie with both. So I had a lot of, still to the day, I have a lot of female friends, right? Because for me, it was always that different perspective that you get from that. I feel like if you spend too much time with the guys, you get a little narrow,
sure.
You know. So I always enjoy that. You know, I was you know, I always had girlfriends and all that, but I always enjoyed the friendship and the value that you get out of having a friend that's of the opposite sex.
So you're in Miami doing yoga with a bunch of girls.
Yeah.
And did you get back into jiu-jitsu?
I did eventually, but I got into jiu-jitsu within Budokon. So Budokon.
What's Budokon? Yeah, I've heard you talk about it a lot.
So Budokon is this really crazy thing that my teacher created in the early 2000s. He created it in Venice Beach, in California, as a training program for the celebrities, right? And it was a blend of yoga and martial arts. I remember I was in Equinox in South Beach in 2005, right? This was the first like big gym that came to Miami. And it was cool because in that time, if you were a yoga teacher in Miami, you probably taught at Synergy or at the Miami Yoga Shala, and you were getting paid $3 to teach a class or something. And then Equinox shows up and they pay $60 an hour.
Oh.
In 2005. That was mega money for a wellness teacher, right? So the best yoga teachers in Miami are all on the schedule at Equinox. And I live 1 block away from it. There was even jiu-jitsu at the time. There was capoeira, there was jiu-jitsu, there was yoga, there was fucking everything. And so I signed up. I came to Miami to do engineering work because I got tired of the cold of Philadelphia. I got more than anything tired of the coldness of the northeastern USA culture. Like people are just boring as fuck up there. Yeah. So I was like, fuck this. I'm going back I want to go back. I want the South American vibe, but I want to be in the US. So I moved to the capital of South America.
Yeah, Miami.
Miami, yeah.
It is.
Yeah. You know why we like Miami so much?
Why?
Because it's close to the United States.
Yeah, that's right.
It's real close.
Check your passport.
Short commute to the U.S. So I move over there, and I started doing all of that, and I find Equinox. So I had jiu-jitsu, I had capoeira, I had yoga with the best teachers, and the people that are now international yoga teachers from Miami, where they're teaching, the 6 p.m. class at the thing. I know. I was like, wow. So I was doing. So I was trying to take all these classes, but my shoulder was still hurting. So I didn't, and they canceled the jiu-jitsu class. Because imagine a jiu-jitsu class at Equinox. It doesn't fit.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, but back then Equinox was new, so they were trying to see what the fuck, and they were just recruiting the best, right? I don't even remember who was teaching that. But I got into yoga, and I fucking loved it, man. And I was doing like 8 classes a week of yoga, and I felt great. My shoulder was getting better. The thing about the girls being in it just kind of wore out after like 3 weeks. I was more into into doing it. And what was really funny is that my teachers were like, yeah, well, you're good at yoga because you're a martial artist. And I'm like, huh. And then I started realizing that, and this is the thing where the dual personality comes in, that I was doing martial arts and I was doing yoga. And at yoga, people were telling me, oh, it's because you're a martial artist. And then at martial arts, people were like, oh, it's because you're yoga. And then it was like, you know, it was like, you know, I remember when I was a kid, I was like, oh, well, you're in theater, you're good because of the engineering thing, or because you go to technical high school, or whatever. It was always like, wherever I was, people were justifying that I was good at that because of this other thing that I do. And I picked up on that pattern that you have opportunities to see the commonalities of art forms or practices or technologies if you're not always looking in the same place.
Yeah.
Right, and you're able to develop a differentiator. Like in business, it's like that unfair advantage, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you have this unfair advantage because you learned this other thing, right? So it really solidified it for me. And then Budokon showed up in my life. I remember there was a really cheesy flyer, and I still have it. And every now and then I send it to my to my teacher. His name is Cameron Shane. He's a good friend of mine, and he's one of the most influential people in my life. So every now and then I take a photo of this flyer and I send it to him, because it's a photo of him before he had a bunch of tattoos. He was skinny, and it said Budokon, yoga and martial arts, married and had a baby. Practice the workout of the Hollywood celebrities. It was so tacky.
Tacky.
Oh my God. So I saw the flyer and I was like, this is bullshit. And I forgot about the flyer. And then I show up at this on a Saturday, and one of my yoga teachers was taking the class, and she saw me walk by, right? And I looked inside. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Why is this classic? Why is this inconveniencing me? I was here for yoga class, and they're doing this fucking workshop. So my teacher comes out, and she's like, you need to be in this class. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You need to come in. I was like, all right, fine. I walk in, and in there's Concho, my teacher, and I didn't know that. And then he's there, no shirt, karate gi pants, black belt, ripped, sweaty, and looks at me, and I'm like, fuck. And all of a sudden, like the whole like traditional Japanese martial arts protocol kicks in, you know. And I just like, I see a fucking guy in a black belt teaching a class. He must know his shit. So I just bow to the guy, and he's like, hey brother, like total California surfer dude. Hey brother, welcome, join us. And I was like, holy fuck, this dude is cool. Take the class, and back then Budokon was so weird. It was like you would do this first part, which was yoga, but it was different because it had slower, more mindful movements, very fluid, and it had all these wave-like movements where yoga was very linear and twisty. This was more circular and fluid, and it was so cool.
More of like a dancing lion type of.
Yeah, well, that's dancing lion is one of our stuff. You know what I mean? So we were doing all these dancing dogs and dancing lions and rolling waves and rolling vinyasas, and it was just so fucking cool. And then the second half of the class was kind of like this: get on the floor and roll up and throw a kick, and get on the floor and roll up and throw 2 punches, and roll on the floor and get up. It was kind of like a cardio kickboxing class, but on your yoga mat. It was fucking wild, and I ate it up. I loved it. And the dude was philosophical, and he was talking about how, you know, how it doesn't matter if you're good at yoga, if you're good at martial arts, if you're still a dick when you're walking down the street, then it doesn't fucking matter. He was cursing, and I was like, I fucking love this. This is my home. And at the end of the class, I'm fucking covered in sweat. Everyone leaves. I stay to talk to the guy, and I was like, "Contra, this was." I was like, you know, when you find something, you're like, "This is fucking awesome." And he's like, "Hey, brother, are you a yoga teacher?" And I'm like, "No." He's like, "Well, you're pretty good at yoga. Are you are you a martial arts teacher? And I'm like, no. He said, well, you're going to be a fucking Budokon teacher, man. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm here for a teacher's training. Show up tomorrow at Sports Club LA or something, 2 p.m. I'll see you there.
Guy's a good recruiter.
Like, holy fuck, man. And yeah, I showed up and I never stopped.
But you did you get to a higher belt?
That was the first black belt I ever got.
Oh, okay. And what about in jiu-jitsu? Where did you finish off?
I ended up purple belt.
Purple belt.
So I'm still purple belt. And dealing with some injuries and stuff. I took a break. I got my purple belt right before COVID. Then I took a break, and then I finally never went back. Yeah. You know, and started doing other things.
So I want to talk about something that you do that I think is very interesting. Is it called integrative living?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is another one of those, because you know, we'd need like 5 hours and we don't have it.
How are we doing on time?
Yeah, well, we're getting there. But I want to jump to this because I did the course with you and it blew my mind. You know, I can't be surprised because I know you're probably the most eclectic persons that I know. You know a lot about so many different things, and I'm always amazed when I hear, you know, you became an electrical engineer. You worked on cars. You worked on big projects for cities and things like that. You did all these amazing things. You've been an entrepreneur. You still are. You're building a retreat center in North Carolina, which I think is going to be awesome. And I can't wait to take my guys there to do that. Great. Martial arts, yoga. But in something I learned from you in this integrative living program, which I think is great for entrepreneurs to sign up for this. And this was the hard part for me. Number one, you talked about the importance of a hobby, and it couldn't be your job. And then you also talked about doing nothing, having periods of time where you're not doing anything. That goes counter to everything we have in our society. So talk about that, about integrative living and what all that is.
Well, integrative living was for me, or is for me still, very, very influenced by what I learned in Budokon and by the philosophy of you're not this yogi or this martial artist or this engineer. Like, we're not that good at acting. It's funny, right? Because a lot of people live their life, you know, like, I'm like this at work, and then I'm like this with my family, then I'm like this with my friends, then I'm like this when I'm traveling and nobody's watching. Then I'm like this at this other thing. Which one are you? I felt that not fully embracing, that identifying with these roles, but then not knowing who you are.
Well, that's got to be stressful when you're not clear. You're not putting it all out there. You're not being yourself at so many times. That's got to cause stress, right?
Well, it definitely does, because you're lying. Right? I mean, keeping a lie going it's a lot of effort, right? So we don't see it as a lie, but you're just not truthfully representing who you are. So it is a lie if you're not truthfully representing something, right? So I call it a lie. So it kind of stings people a little more. But the idea of integrative living is to fix that disintegration, because what that does is it kind of pulls you apart. Right? And people, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people claim that they're being, like, their life feels like they're being pulled apart. And it's not that life pulls you apart. It's the way that you're representing yourself. And I think I got lucky because I was comfortable being in all these different scenarios and remaining myself. And I realized that was the key to my personal success and my personal enjoyment in life. The fact that I've been able to explore so many different experiences while still remaining Donato. Like the Donato you know is the Donato my wife knows. Like, there's no different guy, right? I guess I'm a really bad liar. So I always did that. But people are really good at kind of pretending to be this thing and then pretending to be this other thing. They're very guarded, right? So integrative living is about learning to live complete and live honest. And it's based on what we call the 6 fields of human endeavor, right? And it's movement, mental presence, proper nutrition, rest and relaxation, which is where doing nothing comes in. Movement, mental presence, rest and relaxation, harmony with environment, and fun, which I feel is missing in all wellness systems. Like, nobody talks about having fun, which is where the hobby comes in, right? That's true. So the idea is, I don't care who you are. I don't care who you think you are or who you're pretending to be. Let's look at what you do. Because everything has to do with what you do. Very little things in your life happen to you. Most of your life on the day-to-day basis is what you do, right? And being successful in business didn't happen to you. Yeah. You did a sequence of things that resulted in success in business. You didn't just become, you didn't just happen to be a good husband. You had to work to be a good husband, right? Or a good father. So what is it that you do instead of who is it that you think you are? Because we're not, we aren't anything. We're just alive and doing stuff. So the 6 fields of human endeavor is a different way of looking. Let's look at what you do instead of your mind, your body, and your spirit, or like, who the fuck? Nobody knows what that is. So let's just look at what we do every day and see if we can kind of like make sure that we kind of check these 6 boxes every day. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is learning to have fun. For that, you need a hobby, or you need some entertainment, or you need some distractions maybe. But a hobby is this recreation. It's really powerful, right? So for you, it's jiu-jitsu, right? Because you're not going to become a jiu-jitsu teacher and live off of that, right? Nope. So for you, it's an honest hobby. Mm-hmm. And jiu-jitsu makes you stop everything else you're doing because you want to go have fun. Yep. Right?
And it takes all the noise out. If you're thinking about 100 things, you cannot think about those 100.
Oh, no, man.
You can think about one, surviving and attacking.
Just being there.
Yeah.
So in hobbies, have that, like, you like jiu-jitsu, but let's say that you like collecting stamps, whatever, right? When you're putting together your little stamp collection, it's the whole, you're present. That's Zen. Right? Wonder why the Zen arts are like flower arrangements, making tea, archery. It's pretty cool fucking Zen art if you want to, but archery is the same. I mean, you shoot guns, try to shoot a bow and arrow.
It's tough.
Way harder.
You got to focus so much.
Fuck. I mean, anything enters your mind, and the arrow will tell you, right? So it's just so important to have that hobby, and then at the same time, because it's not that disconnects you with the rest, it connects you with you, right? Because that's why when you come out of jiu-jitsu, you feel like, oh, fuck, that was great. Yeah. There's no way you feel great after jiu-jitsu when you look at it from the outside, right? Like, if you look at it from the outside, okay, so you got twisted and turned and yanked and pulled and that, and you're telling me that you feel great at the end of that.
And you paid for this.
And you paid for this, right? But it is what happens within you when you're doing your hobby, which is that you get to connect with your passion. I love to listen to people talk about their hobbies. I don't care what their hobby is, because what you're listening to a person talk about is their passion. And when you talk to people about their passion, they're talking about them.
Yeah.
Your passion is the only thing that differentiates you from me. You're passionate about something, I'm passionate about something else. And if we talk about our passions, if you listen carefully, you learn a lot about who that person really is. It's very, very close to, we could put out the theory that that's part of your soul, right? That your passion comes through your soul, not through your brain. You know what I mean?
So you really get to know that person.
You really get to know that person when they talk about their passion. You really don't get to know that person when they talk about their job.
No.
Yeah, it's like, you tell me about your underwear company. It's a great fucking story, but were you a little kid dreaming of making underwear? No, right? So this is why the hobby is so important. Now, now when doing nothing comes into play, is that doing nothing also connects you with yourself, but not through being so physically involved that's what filters the noise out. Is learning to sit and be with the noise. Right?
And do nothing.
Just sit there and look at the ocean, or sit there and do nothing. Resting is not reading a book, right? A lot of people are like, oh, what do you do for relaxation? Oh, I read a book. And I'm like, okay, so you're telling me that to relax, you decipher hieroglyphics on a page and imagine a universe that doesn't exist in your head. That is one of the highest cognitive functions in the known universe. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, you're definitely active.
You're insanely active. You're more active than a panther can be active. You know what I mean? It's fucking nuts. There's no way you're relaxing reading a book. Watching a movie, it's entertaining. Reading a book is entertaining. That's fun, but it's not relaxing. See, so we work with, and that may be like the nerdiness and the differentiation that an engineer can make. It's like that's not the right cog in the system. This is the other thing. So doing nothing, and I think that when we were doing integrative living, doing nothing was, I think, the part that you struggle with the most.
Yeah.
Because you found, and you know, I had to really sit hard about what happened with Joel with the rest and relaxation, because and also when I look at your program is habit building. It's very. It's beautiful, and the reason why it works is because it gets a person from indecision and dilly-dallying and fucking around to getting your shit in order, right, and to acting and to going forward, right? So it's amazing at creating momentum. I think the difference between our programs is that my program is more about organizing your living philosophy and deciding who you want to be as a person, instead of kind of getting out of a rut or getting out of a hole or becoming more productive. I think that there are programs that are for complete different things. Yeah. So in integrative living, we have movement. So the program that you have is beautiful for catalyzing conscious movement. So in that case, I think it's very good for mental presence. It's very good for movement. It's very good for creating harmony in your environment, for creating habits that don't derail you from what you want to create. It's very good about setting goals. It's very good about setting values. They're very complementary programs. I think that the do nothing part and stop, because I remember I was like, bro, when you're driving, just drive in silence. And you're like, but I like listening to podcasts. That's cool. But I love learning. I love learning too. I was like, can we just for a second stop it, right? And the reason why I put it in there is because there's been so much creativity and so many beautiful answers that come to me. Like when I was going through divorce, which was one of the most painful periods of my life, if not the most painful period of my life, because I've been very fucking lucky in my life to not have to go through trauma and pain and suffering. I was raised by amazing parents who are still together. I was given tremendous opportunities. There are two things that tortured me. Divorce, two things that tortured me. Look at me talking like a victim, right? There are two things that I put myself through that were painful and very uncomfortable. Number one was engineering school, and number two was divorce. Fucking hated both. They're just rough fucking processes, but if you stick through them and you pay attention to what's going on, you can learn a lot about yourself. It's like rolling with an endless supply of black belts that will fuck you over and over and over.
You'll learn.
Yeah, you'll learn. Yeah, and every now and then they put a blue belt in there, so you think you're okay, and he still kicks your ass. I learned so much through that, and it was just painful. It was just so bad. But the one thing that saved me through those two, looking back, is those moments where I was submitted into exhaustion by the arguments, or submitted into exhaustion by the fucking homework and the mindless shit, right? That you just surrender and you just sit, and the only thing that would make you feel better is not doing more, but just not doing anything, just fucking sitting there. And I realized that in those moments of just being there doing nothing, the answers will come.
Would meditation count as sitting there and doing nothing?
Meditation is, I think, the practice of sitting there and doing nothing, right? I wouldn't call meditation relaxing, but there's a very big commonality with that, where you sit there and do nothing, right? You sit there and you just watch it. The thing about meditation is that you sit there with the intention to watch it. Relaxing is not sitting there with the intention to watch. It's just sitting there.
So, okay, you said looking at the ocean.
Looking at the ocean.
That's a good one. How about grounding and getting some sun? You're just standing there.
Yeah. I mean, you're not doing anything, right?
Yeah.
Sitting on the grass, sitting on the grass, sitting on a chair, like on a like by the pool, sitting on a chair, or just looking out the window. Kind of like daydreaming a little bit, you know what I mean? Where you just sit there and like, huh? And it doesn't need to be very long. Laying on a hammock, that's my favorite. We have a few hammocks in Six Fields over there in North Carolina. We just lay on the hammock. When I do my men's work in Six Fields, I was like, there's the hammock. You need to spend some time in it.
So what's the plan? You're building the retreat center.
Yeah.
And take a guess. When do you think you'll start seeing guests there?
I already started seeing guests there.
Oh, where are they staying?
We have a few structures. Well, right now in the middle of the winter, no guests. But during the summer and during the warmer the warmer, I have the first thing that I started. We have a lot of friends that come and visit. We have a tiny house, we have a camper, and we have a bit of a wall tent, like a military style. Mm-hmm. It's not like a glamping tent, but like a nice, cool wall tent. So so people come and visit, and they stay in that. And I'm in the process of building our first house. We call it the retreat house, which is really our clubhouse for the whole complex. It's going to sleep 12 people, and it has a big kitchen and a big space for practice and for lounging and hanging out. So we're in the process of building that right now. I mean, I'm physically, myself and my wife and friends that come and visit, and my parents, we're building it ourselves, because right now in North Carolina in the winter, no contractors do work. And I committed myself to, instead of being here working, being there building. Yeah. Instead of working here to make money to pay someone to do what I would love to be doing anyways, right. I just do it myself over there, and I love it, man. I'm learning so much.
And what's the plan? So you'll have that house built?
So this house should be built this house should be built the first phase of this house should be built in the next few months, and then the second phase of the house will be built during this year. And then we're going to start building cabins for people to come and stay. So this year we have a few big things. We have a retreat coming up now in February 20th to 23rd. So that's super fun. We're not going to be staying at Six Fields. We're going to be staying nearby. There's a bison farm that has a lot of log cabins. So I rented a few of those log cabins, and we're going to be staying there. It's really cool because you can look at the bison and then you can eat the bison. So it's pretty good.
Is it for hunting there, or are they?
No, it's not for hunting. They raise them for meat. Yeah. Nice. So you can do that. That's super cool. And they have this really cool log cabin. So I rented a big log cabin, and we're going to do that. And then we're going to do a lot of the work at Six Fields. And then I take people to local waterfalls and to local creeks and rivers that we go in. So we do a lot of breath work. We do a lot of integrative living talks. And then we do a lot of cooking together and eating together. So a lot of community building. And then we go on hikes. For me, what I've realized is that the best way to do nothing, this is really close to doing nothing, right, is you go on a hike. Right, you go on a hike, because nature. I don't know if you've heard of it's called Shinrin Roku. It's the Japanese concept called forest bathing. You just go in the forest and you just walk around.
You're doing something while you're walking.
You're doing something, but you just sit. You spend a little bit of time.
Get up there.
Yeah, you get up there and then you just sit. And man, it's like an induced meditative state. It's like breathwork kind of, where you do this thing where it gets you to the right moment. There's the studies coming out which are really cool. They've been coming out for a while, but it's I feel like people are not fucking paying attention to this, because you can't sell walking the forest.
Yeah, there's no money to be made in that.
This is bullshit, because you go and when you go to the woods and you smell, it smells like pine, or it smells like flowers. So that's called terpenes. And terpenes, it turns out to be, which is how you've heard of pheromones, right? Yeah. Right? It's kind of like tree pheromones. And it's really cool, because these terpenes, when you smell them, it goes into your cells, and they trigger all kinds of biological processes, right? So they're into aromatherapy in nature, and it's really cool. So, and we have trails, and we have all kinds of. We have 50 acres for Six Fields. So, and most of it is trails. So we take people hiking, and we take people going around, and I invite people to spend time in nature and do less. I'm not going to be running. So I've been resisting the idea of calling it a retreat center, because retreat centers are usually very programming based, unless you're like in a Vipassana training center where you just go there and you're just hearing silence. But it's more about giving people an opportunity to be there and not do so much. So we're not going to have Wi-Fi. Where we're going to discourage and frown upon people doing work there. It's like, look, man, you come here on vacation. If you need to do work, then come when you can take a vacation, The idea is to not be doing what you do all the time, so that you can experience integrative living, right? Which includes, and for most people and for entrepreneurs, it's because you've been so successful at doing things that you're kind of in this cycle of
That's your default.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, if we grapple, I tell you what, you could be better than me, but if I can figure out your default, I'm going to give you a really hard time. Yeah. Right? That's the thing, is like, that doesn't only fail you in jiu-jitsu, it also fails you in creating a a life that gives you the full potential. And for me, it's not that is, and this is the conversation that we were having. It's like, man, I already have a beautiful life that I love, that I work so hard to build. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just, the idea of integrative living is to really explore the full potential of your life and the full things. Rest and relaxation, I think, is a very powerful skill, because at some point, and as vibrant and young and as hard as we work, as staying forever young, like this Peter Pan effect that we have in our society nowadays, eventually you're going to want to slow down.
Yeah.
Right? And you don't want to learn to slow down when every cell in your being is begging you to please fucking slow down, right? A lot of entrepreneurs go from working, doing a lot. They sell their company and they're like, cool, well, I'm not working anymore. I'm retired. But you're fucking doing things all day. Eventually,
well, you said something interesting yesterday in the workshop that you ran. I think it was great because it was all successful entrepreneurs. And you said, you may want to start practicing for retirement now. Get a hobby, start practicing, because you don't want to start practicing that when you're 50, 60, 70. That's when you're going to start getting a hobby. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, well, let me ask you something. When you start a business, if you start 10 businesses, how many are going to be successful?
I don't know, maybe one.
One. Cool. So what you're telling me is that every 10 ideas you have, one is a good idea.
Maybe.
Kind of, right? Because a business is just a monetized idea, right? Yeah. Okay, cool. So let's say that you retire, and now for the first time in your life, you're going to have ideas of what to do as a hobby. Cool. So you're going to have 10 ideas. You're going to try them.
If you try one a year, it's going to take you 10 years to find the one.
Fucker, you're going to be 70.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're going to be, and now maybe by the time you're 75, you realize that, man, I should have been swimming earlier.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, man. And the other thing is that what's the point of having a company that produces so much abundance or so many resources if you're not going to be able to use them at the peak of your life?
Yeah.
Right? We kind of save it. And it's funny because we became entrepreneurs so that we don't do what our parents did, which is work for an evil corporation for 60 years and then have no vitality left to enjoy their nest egg. We're doing the same fucking thing.
Yeah, we
just call it entrepreneurship. And when you look back, we probably as entrepreneurs work way harder than our parents ever did.
Yeah.
Right?
Because we don't clock out. It's constant. It doesn't end.
It does. Man, I just don't think that's working. And I just don't think that we need to start as entrepreneurs running the numbers, right? Like, how many hours are you putting in? How much money you're taking home? And is there any time and energy left for you to do something with that money that you're taking home? What's the point? I think a lot of entrepreneurs just use their work to escape their reality. Yeah. And I'm like, brother, you started a company so that you can have a better reality, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, top answer, I'm an entrepreneur instead of an employee for freedom.
Yeah, but then they're not free.
You're a slave to your own chain, right? Yeah. It's like...
Yeah, absolutely. Something that I've thought about a lot, I continue to think about this, is when is it enough? The money and the growing a business. I don't think people, that's a moving target. So they keep driving and it's never enough. And sometimes you have them, I've sat with guys and done this analysis, and guess what? They have enough money for the rest of their life. And if they don't need that next Lamborghini and they don't need that next 10-bedroom house, then what are you doing? Don't you want to take some time off and enjoy life?
Right. But if you never stop and do nothing, then you don't have space for that thought.
Yeah.
Makes sense? Yeah. So that's why, for me, it's so important. And we're the entrepreneurial world and the entrepreneurial rat race, which is a new rat race, right? It's fucking killing some of our best minds of our generation. And these are the people that were supposed to come up with the fucking answers to how we're going to live a sustainable life. And these guys are overworked. These geniuses are overworked. Like, you think it would be great to have Elon Musk not a fan, or like these, whatever. Pick one of these masterminds that we have in our societies nowadays. Wouldn't it be great if they weren't fucking so overworked and so fucking crazy and sat down and actually sat down to solve some real issues to really help people? Like, Elon, I love you, but I don't need to fucking go to Mars.
Right.
I need to stay here and figure this out. I don't need internet in the center of the earth. I need we need water so that we can put out a fire.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's weird what we're doing and how we're wasting our generation's minds with this entrepreneurial romantic fantasy. And what's crazy, and I know we want to shift, but I kind of want to put this out, is that we've created this really toxic story in our society where every young person now wants to be an entrepreneur. What they don't know is that every successful entrepreneur was first a great employee. Were you a good employee at some point?
I think I was a great employee.
Right? You can't.
I didn't like it, but I was a good employee.
But that's the formula for being a great entrepreneur. Yeah. You're fucking good, but you can't sit in that box.
Yeah,
so you got to be.
That's what happened.
But now these new generation kids are like, well, fuck working a 9 to 5. I'm like, fuck you. Working a 9 to 5 is the only thing that's going to teach you how to be productive first, because there's no way you're going to go from being on your phone and in high school to being a successful entrepreneur. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because there's some kids that crush it, but we are screwing our kids' future by telling them that being an employee is not a good idea. And by the way, this is why our generation is struggling to get employees, right? So I start a great company, and now you can't hire anyone.
Yeah,
you know why? Because you told everyone that they shouldn't be an employee, and you went on your podcast, and you went on your Instagram, and you created courses about how to be an entrepreneur and how to fucking sell Instagram and how to sell Amazon products.
Right.
Stop. Go. I learned, I delivered lighting fixtures, and I worked at a Mexican restaurant. Mm-hmm. I'm a fucking great waiter. Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. I would see that.
I would
win them over.
Tips, win them over. It recommend them the right things. People fucking loved it. So it's like, become really, really good at being a good employee first, because you know what? If you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be the main employee in your company. Stop telling yourself that you're the CEO of your company, because you're the accountant, you're the janitor, you're the marketing department. Yeah. So if you're not a good employee if you can't,
you're not going to be able to set yourself up.
It's crazy. It's, for us martial artists, we don't shy away from repetitive work that we yet don't understand what it's for.
Right? Yeah, it'll click one day.
Yeah, one day it'll save your life. So I think that we got to figure that out, and we got to know the number. I think that's a bit, because more cannot be the goal. Mm-hmm. If you just say, what's the goal for your company for next year? Oh, we're going to do more than last year. And I'm like, well, good luck with that. You know what I mean? For me, it's like, you got to work less. If anything, that should be the goal. Work less, not make more.
Well, every time someone's 100 years old and on their deathbed, it's always the same thing. They wish they would have spent more time with family, friends, relaxed, vacationed, all those things. Yeah, all right, so I recommend you to every entrepreneur, because that's who most of my friends are, who want a different perspective. Where can these folks learn more about you, connect with you, learn about your program, Integrative Living, your
Six Fields?
Six Fields.
Yeah, and what we were doing over there.
Yeah, how can we get in contact with you and learn more about you?
I think the best way would be to go on my website. Don't go on my social media, because I don't check it very much. No. I'm up in the ladder.
Swinging a hammer.
Yes. So reach out through my website, donatohelbling.com. I have a contact page. I make it kind of hard for people to get a hold of me, so that when they get a hold of me, I know that they're serious about it. Definitely will stop everything I'm doing to help a fellow entrepreneur that is struggling, or that is really trying to get their life together. I'm probably not the best to tell you how to make your business better, but
at this point, they're contacting you for other reasons.
For it's like, man, if you're starting to develop some bad habits, if you're starting to realize that you're successful over here but not successful over here, watch out. Like that's the trap, thinking that you can be successful over here but not successful over here, and that's sustainable. You're the same person who's successful over here and not successful over here. It's still you, right? So I like to work with that you in the middle, with that honest version. Yeah, and we're gonna talk about some stuff that's gonna sound very weird, that every part of your brain's gonna resist, but if we can get through that, I think that you can then live a really, really positive and beautiful life. So reach out to me via my website, donatohelbling.com, or send me an email, donato@donatohelbling.com, and let's talk. Right now I don't have a lot of my programs up on my website, so I'm working with a lot of one-on-one clients right now, because that's a little bit easier to schedule while I'm dealing with construction. But we do have the retreat coming up in February, so we have a few more spots on that. That's really cool. And then I do a lot of corporate events where I come in and we do workshops where we do breath work and ice baths. And you notice that in every one of my workshops, I put in a little integrative living, right?
Oh, yeah.
So at the end of every workshop, some of the guys come and they're like, hey, that thing, the breath work was cool, the ice bath, but that thing that you said, can we talk more about that?
Yeah, the way you mix in the whole thing, I think it's fantastic. It's like nothing I've ever done before. And I think it helps make us a more complete person. So
thank you.
I'm super honored to have you in my life, to be my friend. I mention you in my 31-day book because you had a big impact on my life years ago, and you continue to, because I continue those practices.
Thank you.
So
brother.
I hope that people got something out of this. I think they will, and I think they'll get even more out of it if they go to donatohelbling.com, learn more about you, get in contact with you if that's something they want to do. They won't regret it. Thanks for being here, man.
Brother, thank you so much for everything you do, for all the help you put out. I mean, I love you because you've taken your success and you're just using it to help other people. And ultimately, I don't know what else success is good for if it's not to help others, and in such an honest way. You know what I mean? Like all your programs, all this stuff, and I really respect you a lot for that, and I value you as a friend, and I look forward to more. I look forward to more.
I look forward to being at
brother.
Six Fields one day.
Thank you, brother.
All right, thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
I gotta get them to stop, and we'll edit those parts out.
Good
job,
deal,
man. That was awesome.
Thank you, man.
Ooh, I gotta pee.
Woo!